Hi, I'm Jason McCain with Free Speech TV. You've just seen 5 Days in Denver, a film that really chronicles the details and events of the 2008 Democratic National Convention here in Denver. We're here now with some of the key organizers of Recreate 68. We have Barb Cohen, we have Glenn Spagnolo, and we also have Mark Cohen, three of the main organizers for the event. We wanted to talk to them a little bit about their experiences and talk more about what's changed and what's happened as a result of their activities. Mark, can I start with you? Can you talk a little bit about the security infrastructure and culture that was created around the 2008 DNC and what you think are the effects today, all these years later, of that security culture that's very much a part of Denver now?
I'd be happy to. Part of the reason we organized to demonstrate at the DNC, aside from the specific issues involved, was in the post 9/11 atmosphere to assert our right as citizens of a democratic society to engage in dissent, because dissent was being criminalized, was being treated as terrorism in that atmosphere. And that did not change during the DNC. Denver was given $50 million for security, and they used, I think, every penny of it to create what amounted to a police state in Denver during the DNC. It was a very scary atmosphere, and it was obviously calculated deliberately to tamp down dissent, to give the impression that everything was hunky-dory and everybody was behind the Democratic Party. And since the DNC, in fact, that atmosphere has continued and in a way has tamped down dissent even more, so that activism in Denver has been very difficult to sustain in the wake of that police state that was created during the DNC.
Following up on the police state comment, a lot of the impact from that was a direct impact and a threat to civil liberties. Barb, can you talk a little bit about what that looked like and felt like on the streets and how it's changed?
Well, the Denver City Council passed a number of resolutions that forbade people to carry what they considered weapons with them. You couldn't carry sticks. The cops were stopping people who were carrying coffee mugs for fear that they had feces or urine in them. And this is from a city council that a number of years ago, after the Patriot Act was passed, was one of the first cities in the country to pass a resolution reaffirming the Bill of Rights. People just got terrified of being downtown because of all of the barricades the city put up. Even members of the mayor's administration came downtown and took a look at downtown Denver and said, I wouldn't come down if I had to be down here. So it really cramped people's ability to come out in the streets and to talk. And people were just scared because they were afraid they were going to be arrested because of Denver's history with the cops and the Red Squads going after people who dissented.
Now, I recall in the planning phase, Glenn, there was a tremendous amount of criticism and very negative feedback from the left, or groups that were organizing on behalf of the Obama campaign or sympathetic to the campaign. Can you talk a little bit about the criticisms that you received and what your thoughts are on those now?
Sure. I mean, there was a pretty hard pushback from a certain portion of the left community that we were at the wrong convention, that we were protesting the wrong candidate. And there were a lot of funds withdrawn from supporting Recreate 68, a lot of disunity because of that being created at the time. Unfortunately, it seems that Obama has lived up, or you could say lived down, to everything that we expected him to do by looking at his previous record. Now, when looking at it, I hope that some people on the left realize that when you're protesting, when you're looking to make change, you have to look at the person that's closest to your political beliefs to sway them to be anti-war, to be pro-civil liberties, to be pro-prisoner rights, and not look at somebody who's so far away from your beliefs like the Republicans and expect them to change. That's not going to occur. So I hope now that people are realizing the places to be, to create pressure, to find that link that could be broken and make a new reform or change in the system, is the person closest to you. And focus on the Democratic Party, the Democratic Convention, to come out and pressure them through street politics.
Mm-hmm. And when people see this film, a lot of times they're really surprised at the level of violence that you and many of your activist comrades experienced in the streets. Do you feel like when you go out and protest now that you're under even more watchful eyes, there's more security, or do you feel like as a result of the extreme violence that was deployed, that the lessons learned have created a safer environment for protests now than back then?
We go out in the streets to do protests now, and the cops greet us by name. They know us from the DNC, if not before, or from being undercover agents during the DNC. And you can't be afraid. You have to go out and express your opinion because this is supposed to be a free society.
And knowing us by name is nothing to be proud of. I'm actually ashamed of that at times. But we show up at protests, and I'm there with a police escort. It makes it very difficult for me to be part of the community anymore. They have an expectation that something's going to occur when certain faces show up at a protest. So I walk up, nothing's going on, but you can guarantee there's 4 or 5 police officers right behind me, following me everywhere I go through a crowd, which creates a very difficult situation for me to just interact with the community at large now. So it makes you almost a pariah from your own community because of the police presence.
And Mark, what about you? Have you experienced any differences, or is it very much a threatening kind of security culture for you?
I think the biggest thing that's happened since the DNC is Occupy Denver, and we all had our differences with Occupy Denver, but in terms of the way they were treated by the authorities and by the police, really nothing has changed. The minute they seem to represent any kind of serious threat to the existing order, the police crack down on them right away.
And with all of these years behind you now, and since Recreate 68, what do you think was the effect of Recreate 68? What was the impact that you saw or you experienced as an organizer?
Well, I mean, I've seen, the beauty of it is that we saw a lot of people who came out for the first time in their lives to protest something. It was in their community, they felt they wanted to be a part of it and came out. They weren't sure what to expect, and in essence, they became radicalized by this. And now we see those same people who were so green and so new to this, not knowing what was going on, organizing their own events, organizing their own activities, their own projects, and that's the beauty of it, is that you plant a seed and you get to see what grows from that. The expectations aren't that myself, Barbara, and Mark are going to continue to find ways to do it. The expectations were that we were going to plant a seed, we were going to give birth to new organizers who would go on to take it to another place that we didn't imagine, and that's been the beauty for me to see. So,
what about you, Bart?
I think one of the best things that came out of Recreate 68 and all the work for 6 months to a year that we put in is the friendships that were formed during that time period, and during the time when we were being, pillaged by the people in the Democratic Party and on the left for what we were doing, that we really hung strong and hung together. And 6 years later, we're still for most of us, we see each other all the time, and we're a tight group of people. And I'm just so proud of the work we did then, and the people we brought in to speak, and the different events we did.
So in our last minute, what would you say to our viewers who are watching this and seeing really this explosive violence, yet you're seeing the real spirit of democracy with people standing up for what they believe and taking action in the street? What message do you have to them? People who watch this film and see your bravery and your activism, what would you tell them right now? What can they do?
I think watching this film can serve as kind of a primer for people who want to engage in dissent, because the film really shows how you have to start organizing with just a few people and stick to your guns and build from there, and you can come out with something meaningful.
It's also important that they realize that what they're seeing is not an anomaly. It's not something that's out of the ordinary. This is what major protest looks like across the country and has looked like for a long time. People are sheltered in their homes from this because the media doesn't like to cover it. And they need to see this, understand that the civil liberties are at threat, and as American citizens, take those back and demand their rights that are guaranteed to them under the Constitution. So,
Barb, final thoughts.
I think aside from all the serious things that Mark and Glenn have talked about, the other thing people have to come out of this is when you organize something like this, you have to have fun. You have to remember how to laugh.
That's good. That's a good place for us to finish. And well, that concludes our interview. I just wanted to thank Mark, Glenn and Barb, for joining us today. Thank you for watching, and thank you for watching Free Speech TV.